Hey gamers, this is Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire, and this week I'm going to be reviewing V-Sabotage Ghost. This is an expansion to V-Sabotage from Triton Noir. Alright, so here's a basic setup from V-Sabotage. This is just one level of the game, and I'm going to basically describe the game and then what's included in the Ghost expansion so you know what you want to get. I personally love V-Sabotage. In fact, I've had it since it was called V-Commandos, and so this is just another expansion that I'm adding on. Actually, my own sets of the game are inconsistent because I have cards with the old name on the back from previous sets from my core set. If you start now, you're going to have everything be consistent, which is nice. If you have an old set, there are a couple of terminology changes, but really the rules are the same, so no problem. They're pretty compatible. If I really wanted to, I'd just get some card sleeves that obscured the backs of the cards, and it would be no problem at all. But anyway, the premise of this game is that you are playing a bunch of commandos from different countries who are infiltrating German sites of various types, and you're messing with the Nazis. And you're doing this with a combination of kind of stealth, puzzle solving, and then you're usually going to have to fight your way out. So here I've got a couple of little commandos. This is for the Lone Wolf version of the game, so I'll describe that in a moment. But we've come in through this trapdoor, and we can either exit through this trapdoor or this one here if we come here and open it. But we're going to have to work our way across to destroy this objective. So this is one level of the game, and it is set up according to these instructions. So this told me how to build out the tiles, like what items to put where, and where to put soldier entries for when reinforcements from the enemy come in. So for every individual level, you're going to take what you need to know from this card. There's also a little recommended number of commandos on it, but when you're playing Lone Wolf, you play with one and maybe a puppy, which I'll show you. And then when the level's complete, you flip it over to indicate that you finished it. But this is just one level. You can also play at the operational level. So I'm going to talk more about this in a moment. But if I wanted to, I could combine the battery with all of these other levels and turn them into a big operation that I could play through. And this is the One-Eyed Ghost operation. And so ideally you would play this in the Lone Wolf mode to kind of replicate a really cool historical feat that is described in the rulebook. So each of these levels can become operations, and then as we're going to talk about a little bit more, the operations can now, with the Ghost expansion, be strung together into campaigns. So you can basically play this game at the length and intensity that you want, and the expansions are just here to help you do that. But in one level, you're going to essentially spend action points to do things like move from tile to tile, maybe shoot a door to open it. This one's locked, this one's not. And as you try to navigate, you have to be very careful because your visibility changes depending on the size of tile you're on. If you're alone on a small tile with no enemies, you're okay. You could probably do some sneaking. So we might be able to sneak along here, for example. But then when you go into medium tiles, if you enter them stealthily, maybe you won't be seen. But you do have to roll checks when you've got enemies in that space. And if you move into a large space, you're automatically visible. You're going to trip the alarm. And once the alarm is tripped, once you've been seen, then double the amount of reinforcements come in during the enemy step of each turn. Unless you want to take the time to come and turn the alarm off, which you may or may not feel you have time to do. So this is a game where you're going to do a lot of checking out sort of the structure of things, do a lot of planning, and kind of figure out what you think is the best strategy to get your objectives done. Happily, there is a nice little player aid on the back of the rulebook, the main one, that'll give you your full turn structure. So basically what you're always going to do is have an event phase. I've kept my event deck separate just to show you. Basically, when you are making your event deck, you're going to shuffle together the cards from the base game and then from whatever expansions you're using. With Ghost, you can use one of the other expansions, but not both. So if you're using Ghost, you're either going to do the base and Ghost or the base, Ghost, and one other expansion, depending on what you've got and what you're playing. But here's an event card. You flip it. Basically, at the beginning of the turn, you do the event. So basically, this one is, during this turn, each time a commando shoots, they can ignore the result of one die and re-roll it, which is pretty nice. It makes you a little more accurate. At least you get to retry stuff. And then here at the bottom, this is what the enemies are going to do, how they're going to move during their turn, if none of your commandos are currently spotted. So you draw one of these at the beginning of every turn. Then you take all of your commando actions, which can include using equipment. There are explosives, you got crowbars you can pick up, med packs that you can pick up, a bunch of different things that have kind of appeared over the course of this game. And you can pick them up, use them, move around, try to attack people, open this trapdoor. There's a number of different options you're going to have. And then during the enemy phase, you are going to draw from this draw bag. This is actually just a random draw bag I had lying around the apartment. But you need a draw bag. And you're going to pull enemies from it. 1 token for each of these entrances. 2 if the alarm is tripped and you're drawing double. So the enemies have different strengths. And sometimes it's a null token where there is no enemy, but that means that you put one of these elite enemies in the bag that you'll draw later that'll punish you. And then once the enemies are on the board, they're either going to move towards the closest visible commando. So if you're currently visible and you're not in stealth mode, then they're going to come at you. Or if you are not visible, they're going to move according to what's on the event card. Sorry if you hear any background noise, by the way. My lizard has woken up from brumation. She's very excited to be awake in the springtime. So that's what's going on there. It's just Mookie. And then once the enemies have moved, they are going to shoot at you, and they're going to shoot. They're going to roll dice based on the number of pips that are on their tokens. So overall, it's pretty simple. You're taking actions, they're taking actions. You're trying to get the objective, they're trying to stop you. And there's a lot of stealth built in. So what does the Ghost expansion bring? Well, it brings 3 different game modes that you can kind of mix and match. One is XP. So the XP is part of allowing you to play lone wolf mode, which we're about to talk about, and also allowing you to play a campaign where you keep stuff that you've earned from level to level, from operation to operation, throughout the course of a longer campaign. So basically what these XP cards do is that there's some that are lone wolf only, so you don't play these in a co-op mode. There's some that are only for veteran players, so I've taken them out of the decks for now. But essentially, when you complete an objective on a level, at that time you get to draw 1 XP card from each of these colored decks, and you get to choose one to keep and then use. So basically, the blue ones are persistent. They are usable at any time when you're in a certain situation in the game. And then the yellow ones are one-time use, like you flip them, and then you can flip them back over and reuse them in the next level. But they're like a once per level buff. So they're really cool, and they build up over time in really interesting ways. They're a lot of fun to play with. But what the XP also bring is something bad, because, when you give something, you must also take. It's how good game design works, right? But as your commandos acquire XP, they are also going to have to draw danger tokens. So you don't necessarily know what the danger tokens do. You should have them all face down. But you draw one, you don't look at it, and you put it in the enemy reserve bag, and you'll draw it later. And when you do that, something bad is going to happen. So this one is basically going to mess with the direction that the enemies move in. It could cause a little extra danger depending on what you're anticipating during your turn. I'll also note that only 1 commando gets an XP card at a time, so they do come out very slowly, especially if you're playing with multiple people. But what this leads to is the lone wolf mode. So even though V-Commandos, now V-Sabotage, has been popular with solo players for a long time, only with Ghost does it have like a full solo mode where you can play this with 1 single commando. And so that is lone wolf mode. And in lone wolf mode, you get to hold more XP cards than you do in the cooperative game, because obviously you need some more help. And essentially you're playing with 1 commando of your choice. If you want to do the one that kind of seems custom built for that, that's Death Cheater. He's creepy looking. He's effective. And then I also like to build in Gander. Gander is a dog that I'm pretty sure is in the Kickstarter edition, because there's a big K on the back of this card. But Gander isn't actually a separate commando. Gander is like a dog that will follow you around. Gander shares action points with you and, can do special things. I personally just like having a dog companion, so I'm always going to play with the dog whenever possible. Although I will tell you it's extremely upsetting when the dog dies, so, get ready for that. Anyway, in the lone wolf mode, you're playing with 1 commando, and you're basically doing all of this work by yourself. And so that means that you need a little bit more help. There's a chart in the rulebook to kind of tell you what you need. So how many lone wolf XP cards do you get? What kind of equipment are you going to get that's a little bit extra? Basically, you get little extras to help you survive each of the levels. There are also some cards that you have to take depending on what operation or level you're playing. So you definitely want to pay attention to that. And then there's also these little things called luck tokens that you can put into the enemy reserve as well. So just as danger tokens up the ante in terms of making things a little bit scary, these luck tokens can be good. And so they have good bonuses to them. So for example, this one helps you remove spotted tokens to hide again, or if you don't have to do that, then you get some flight options that you can use later. So basically, it's still kind of challenging to do this by yourself. I think there's a lot to be said for multi-handing this and playing a bunch of different commandos, because having multiple people in multiple places, I personally think that maybe I like that better, but I do enjoy the lone wolf mode, and it's really cool that they've actually finally built that in, and I like the way that they did it for the most part. And then, of course, the last thing that you have in here is called campaign mode. And that's where, it used to be that you could either play a level or an operation, but now you can chain levels into operations and then operations into a campaign that can be as long as you want. So that's actually pretty cool. It basically gives you the opportunity, because of the XP's existence, to have a longer game where you're keeping more stuff from game to game and where you kind of really do power up in a way that makes that satisfying to do. So if you wanted a longer game of V-Sabotage, you can now do it in a way that's custom built for that purpose, which I think is really neat. So hopefully that's a pretty good overview of what's going on with V-Sabotage itself, and then V-Sabotage Ghost. So V-Sabotage on its own is a game that I personally really like. I've recommended it in the past. I still recommend it. And it's a really great little stealth co-op. I think it's super fun, either solo or with a couple friends. Ghost gives you some more options on top of what you already had in that base box. So you have experience cards that let you get little buffs at the end of each level when you complete objectives. You've got Lone Wolf mode, which lets you play it true solo, which a lot of solo players do prefer, and I think this is a legit way to do that. And then there's also, of course, the campaign mode, where you can string multiple operations together and create like an epic game where you've got all this XP and all this stuff going on, and you can really extend the adventure. So that is my overview. Let's go ahead and have some final thoughts. All right, so now for some final thoughts. When you're reviewing a game with an expansion, I feel like there's always two things you're talking about: the base game and how you continue to feel about it, and then the expansion and where that fits in. So I'll start with just my general feelings about V-Sabotage. I have basically always loved this game. I liked it when it was V-Commandos. I still really like it. I think it's a great part of a solo collection, especially if you're looking for an interesting World War II game that doesn't feel quite like the others. The stealth elements, even though I didn't think they were perfect initially, and I still don't think so, stealth in board games is really hard to do, but I think it's implemented pretty well in V-Sabotage, and the game is a really fun, puzzly experience where you're doing a lot of prep and you're really paying attention to where the guards are, but you can't fully predict what's going to happen, and eventually you're going to have to make a mess to get what you want, and things get really exciting from there. So I think that the game is tense and it's fun. I really enjoy basically just the game. I think it's great. And the expansions so far have been good. So where does Ghost fit into that? I think that Ghost is doing something really nice for V-Sabotage because it's offering it things that I think that the game really needed given its audience, but that it didn't previously have. And I think it's doing it in a way that makes a lot of sense. So one of the things that's really nice about V-Sabotage is that you are able to play it in kind of the chunks that you want to play it in. So being able to just do one level has always been really nice. So if you're somebody who likes Assassin's Creed and you're curious about V-Sabotage, you should know that Assassin's Creed runs on the engine that was started with V-Commandos and then V-Sabotage. But it's a full campaign-length game. So if you want something that's a bit shorter, V-Sabotage has been able to do that. You can play one level, you can play one operation, and I really like that Ghost kind of adds in the option for a campaign once again. I think that is something that people will want to do. I like the way that it gives you options for how to do it. It's very flexible in terms of the campaign rules. It's not like, okay, here's the campaign and here's the operations you have to play. It's more like, okay, so you can play with Ghost and one of the other expansions and you can just chain stuff as much as you want. And I think that there's something to be said for that. I think that flexibility in games is good, especially when it's had so many different options available over the years. So, there's a lot of history when you add an expansion on, like Ghost. And I think that it does a good job of accepting that and kind of helping you turn your currently existing V-Sabotage collection into what you want it to be, instead of just trying to reinvent the whole wheel. And towards that end, I think that the XP cards are very cool. You like certain XP powers better than others, and I think that's pretty normal. But overall, they offered some really nice little options to spice up gameplay, to give you a little special get out of jail free card, to really make you feel like you were growing your commandos and like giving them extra powers that they deserve because of the experience that they're getting. And I like that you can include XP in just a normal operation, so you don't have to play a whole campaign in order to enjoy it, or you could add them into the campaign and just keep swapping them out as you max out on XP cards that you can hold. So the flexibility in how those cards are used is also really nice. And there's some little additions too, like the red dice that have better odds of not getting detected that are in the ghost box that are really neat. And then, of course, I want to talk about Lone Wolf, which I feel like I have to as a solo player. Is Lone Wolf the true way to play this game solo now? I mean, yes and no. I thought that Lone Wolf was a good game mode, and I like it. I think that there's something very cool about going there and playing as one commando and trying to make it work. I think that this is going to be a more appealing mode. If you're not like me and you do mind playing multi-handed, I actually do not mind controlling multiple characters, and I, in fact, enjoy it. So I actually kind of miss cooperative V commandos when I'm playing Lone Wolf because I like having different people with different equipment and different abilities, and I like being able to kind of send them to different parts of the map instead of just having me and like maybe the dog. So I personally still prefer the cooperative aspect of things. Having a team that you can split up just feels more natural to me when I play this game. It may be because of the way that I've played it for so many years before Ghost came out, but I'm still finding that in my plays, I don't mind Lone Wolf. I do like it. It's good. But I prefer still to play with multiple commandos. That said, I do think that the Lone Wolf mode largely works really well, helping to build it out by adding in the luck tokens and extra XP cards in order to make up for not having everybody available to you like on a full team. I think it's really smart. It's clearly thought out very nicely, and it's definitely possible to have a really, really good time with Lone Wolf mode. I do, however, have some quibbles about it. Actually, this is a really interesting experience. So there's actually a rule in V Commandos and then V-Sabotage that I've never even noticed before because it didn't have any relevance until Lone Wolf. So I'll just hold up this operation card. So as you can see, there are these two parallel levels that are open at the same time. And so in a normal game of V Commandos, what you would do is you would just kind of split your commandos and send one to one level and one team to another level. And then they would just try to complete both levels, and then you move on together to the next stage. But in Lone Wolf, obviously you can't do that. And so I had never even thought about this. But when you unlock those parallel levels, they're both open at the same time. So you have to set them both up at the same time. And you have to run the enemies and like the guards in both of those levels, even if there isn't a commando in one of them. So when there are two teams that are taking on tasks, I never really thought about it, honestly. I just kind of thought, oh, well, they just teamed up. And, there was never a situation where I had an empty level because I had commandos in each one trying to separately fulfill objectives. Now that there's a Lone Wolf mode, the fact that that is still in place, I thought was kind of weird. And in a way, I didn't like it because I didn't like all of the sentries and stuff building up on a level that I couldn't physically be in because I was trying to fulfill one objective before moving on to another one. It took me a little bit to be sure that I was playing it right because it felt so counterintuitive to me in Lone Wolf. And, I think that you can either figure out how to play it that way and enjoy it, or you can do what I'll do if I keep playing it this way and I don't like it, which is just go through the levels one by one. It's not going to kill anybody if you just house rule that. So I don't really think it's a deal breaker. It's just kind of odd. And I'm still kind of working out how much I really like that or not. It's not a decision I think I would have made, but, I can see also trying to keep Lone Wolf as close to like the regular game as possible. So that said, I really, really think that Ghost is a worthy addition to V-Sabotage. Do you absolutely need it in order to enjoy V-Sabotage? No. Like, the base game is really good. The other expansions that have come out add, like, nice spice to the mix. There's a lot in this game system to enjoy. But Ghost really does add something special because it gives you the XP, which kind of help you feel like your commandos are growing from level to level or from operation to operation. I think that there's something really special about that. I think that the fact that the XP work as part of the potential to create a campaign is really cool. Like, what a neat tie-in of these different game modes, and I think that works nicely. And then the XP also enables the lone wolf mode, which I also do think is good, even if I do prefer to play this multi-handed and have multiple commandos going at once. But overall, it's a nice expansion in a series that I already really like. If you haven't played V-Sabotage, I really think that it's great. Like, what a treat. You should definitely give it a shot because I think it's a good game that has really been standing the test of time over many years at this point. So thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, maybe support me on Patreon if you'd like me to make more game videos instead of teach summer school, you know. and most of all, happy gaming.